oath of office yesterday. Did for a microsecond you wish, gee, I wish I was up there doing that?
Every day.
On Saturday, the eulogies at John McCain's memorial service at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., the eulogies will be delivered by two former presidents, George W. Bush and Barack Obama. John McCain, of course, ran against both of those men for president, Bush in the primaries and Obama in the general. But now both of those former presidents, both of those political opponents of John McCain will praise him and remember him and help lay him to rest. Senator McCain will then be interred on Sunday at the U.S. Naval Academy Cemetery in Annapolis. Arizona's Republican Governor Doug Ducey has said that out of respect for Senator McCain, he's not going to name McCain's successor for McCain's seat in the Senate until McCain has been laid to rest, which again will happen this weekend. Thereafter, Governor Ducey will announce who he has chosen for McCain's seat. Now, once that person is named by the governor of Arizona, that person will actually serve as an appointed senator for a couple of years. Until 2020, when the special election will be held for McCain's seat. Now, we don't know who Governor Ducey will pick for McCain's seat to hold that seat for 2 years, but we do know that by Arizona law, the governor has to appoint a senator from McCain's own party. I mean, not that there'd be any ambiguity about this anyway, but by law, Governor Ducey in Arizona has to appoint a Republican to McCain's seat. And I just want to spell that out a little bit because I think understandably there's been a little bit of confusion as to what's happening with Senator McCain's seat, and it's largely because of a big coincidence on the calendar. It is a coincidence that tomorrow voters in Arizona are going to go to the polls to pick a Republican candidate for U.S. Senate from Arizona. But that's not for John McCain's seat. Tomorrow's primary in Arizona is to pick candidates for Arizona's other U.S. Senate seat, the one that is currently held by Jeff Flake, who is retiring. So Democrats will pick somebody to run for that seat, as will Republicans. On the Democratic side, Congresswoman Kristen Sinema is considered to be the favorite. On the Republican side, it is a three-way race. Current Republican Congresswoman Martha McSally, also former sheriff and Trump pardon recipient Joe Arpaio, and John McCain's last primary opponent, Kelly Ward, who Senator McCain beat easily in 2014. So it depends a little bit on who gets nominated, but that general election contest for U.S. Senate in Arizona, but not the McCain seat, the Jeff Flake seat, that is expected to turn out to be one of the most competitive races in the country for this fall. We now know that person will serve alongside a 2-year placeholder appointed to John McCain's seat, whose name we will learn in the next week after John McCain is laid to rest. So disambiguating those two different Senate seats, it is a coincidence in terms of the timing, but we'll have a name for McCain's successor next week. We will have candidates for Flake's seat as of tomorrow night. Watch this space. We will have primary returns for you tomorrow night from Arizona, also from Florida and Oklahoma, tomorrow night late into the evening. Stay with us. This is one of those stick a pin in this stories. Just like, heads up on this one. Watch out for this. This might turn out to be something. In 2012, the career networking website LinkedIn got hacked. Passwords for about 6.5 million users of LinkedIn were stolen, and they were published on a Russian internet forum. 4 years later, in 2016, the company announced that actually it wasn't 6 million LinkedIn users, it was more like 100 million users whose private information got stolen in that single attack. Then late in 2016, actually October 2016, 2.5 weeks before our presidential election, we got this announcement from the U.S. Justice Department. Justice Department announced it was charging a suspect in the LinkedIn hacking case. His name was Yevgeny Nikolin. He's in his late 20s. He was from Russia. He was charged with executing that cyber attack on LinkedIn, also charged with hacking the file sharing site Dropbox, also charged with hacking a question and answer forum called FormSpring. And here's the interesting part. This isn't one of those cases where the U.S. Justice Department indicts some Russian hacker, but nothing ever comes of it because he's in Russia and they don't extradite to us, and so this guy will never actually see a U.S. courtroom. This guy, Nikolin, is Russian, but at the time that the Justice Department indicted him, he wasn't in Russia. He was in the Czech Republic. And police in the Czech Republic arrested him. And in March of this year, they extradited him to the United States. And he is now in jail, in federal custody, in the San Francisco Bay Area, awaiting trial. So I'm sticking a pin in this story for a couple of reasons, because it turns out to be a weird and interesting story. First of all, they are not lumping this hacker, Yevgeny Nikulin, with the other big Russia cyber attack prosecutions that we've got going on right now, right? We've had hacking indictments brought by the special counsel's investigation being operated out of Washington, D.C. This has not been lumped into that. They're keeping this one in the jurisdiction of the U.S. attorney, the federal prosecutor, based in San Francisco. This guy's facing 30 years in prison in the case that's being brought against him in California. But there's these other emerging details about this case that make it worth watching. Bloomberg News now reports, based on reports from the suspect's lawyer, that ever since Nikulin was arrested and extradited to the U.S., Russian government officials have been unusually involved in his case, including, quote, arranging at least once to visit him in jail when his attorneys were not present. That makes sense that Russia would be interested in their citizen being held in a big federal case in the U.S., but talking to him without his lawyers there? And it's not just Russia that appears to be very interested. Bloomberg News also reports that they spoke to an official at the U.S. Justice Department who says this alleged Russian hacker awaiting trial in California is, quote, of great interest in a U.S. probe of election meddling. Continuing from Bloomberg, quote, prosecutors are eager to find out what, if anything, Nikulin knows about election meddling. They are as eager to know about that as they are eager to get to the bottom of the LinkedIn and Dropbox hacks. Oh, really? We don't know exactly what this means, whether Mr. Nikulin has any information that could be helpful in terms of investigating Russian involvement in the U.S. election, or whether he knows nothing about any of it. But there's something going on here with this case that we don't yet understand, and it is worth remembering this guy's name. Here's the guy's name again. Put it up on the screen. Do we have it? Yevgeny Nikulin. Yevgeny Nikulin. Go ahead and set up that Google alert. We'll be right back. We have a bunch of questions. Have we ever seen anything like that before in American governance? Did this thing actually end? Is it still going on? Am I asking the right questions here? That's the heart of the matter, right? Should those dots be connected? Do I have that right? Am I right to see it that way? How are we supposed to know? What do you make of that decision? Is that accurate? What does that sound like to you? Is that weird? What does that mean? Sounds a little nuts, right? Is it fair to say? What's going on with that? Why is this happening? Why is that? Why is that? Why is that? Lots more to get to tonight. Stay with us. For me on Friday night, my staff loved working with you.
It was fantastic. It was a great experience. I loved it doing it, and if you all discuss that you'll have me back, I'd be happy to do it again. But it was great fun spending time with your team. Thank you, Rachel.
Will do. Thanks, Alex.
Have a great evening. Well, breaking news tonight from the Wall Street Journal: a surprising twist in the criminal trials of President Trump's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort. Manafort's defense team reportedly held talks with special counsel Robert Mueller's prosecutors to discuss a possible plea deal to resolve the second set of charges against Manafort. According to the Journal, quote, the plea discussions occurred as the Virginia jury was spending 4 days deliberating tax and bank fraud charges against Mr. Manafort, sources said. Of course, that jury convicted Manafort on 8 counts. They deadlocked on 10 others. Now, the talks between the two sides were aimed at forestalling a second